Hi there and welcome to Atoll TV's ISO 9001 playlist. I'm going to review the requirements of Clause 4.3, determining the scope of the quality management system. I'm going to break it down and turn it into something we can all understand. You'll then be able to apply this to your own organisation's system and understand what the requirements will look like for you. No more guessing. Hi, I'm Jackie Stapleton and you're watching Atoll TV, the place to expand your career and learn from experts. I'm the Director of Auditor Training Online and I'm here to help you on your way to implementing or auditing against ISO 9001, the 2015 revision. While you're here, I'd love you to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on anything exciting in the future. So, to start off with, I'm going to ask you a question. What clause in ISO 9001 do you need support in unpacking and determining what it might look like applied to your organisation? Or, if you're an auditor, which clause causes the most uncertainty? Comment below as I'd love to help you, and this will help with our future videos in this playlist. I do need you to stick around until the end so I can share with you some examples of what a documented scope does look like. Okay, let's get started. Clause 4.3 is called Determining the Scope of the Quality Management System. There are a few points in this clause, so I'm going to break them down and explain them bit by bit. The first point in the leading sentence is, the organisation shall determine the boundaries and applicability of the quality management system to establish its scope. The words that stand out to me here are boundaries and applicability. I always do this when I talk about scope and boundaries and applicability. It's almost like putting a fence around the system so we know what activities, products, services, and even locations are included in the management system. Now, there's some more information that we're asked to consider when determining these boundaries and applicabilities. Point A states that when determining this scope, the organisation shall consider the external and internal issues referred to in 4.1, and B, the requirements of relevant interested parties referred to in 4.2. So, a quick reminder that Clause 4.1 is understanding the organisation and its context, and 4.2 is understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties. So go and check those videos out in the ISO 9001 playlist if you need to understand those requirements further or just need a refresher. The reference back to these previous clauses is great. I love it. It shows how everything we do within this standard is all related, and nothing that we do is just a standalone step created just to keep auditors happy and cause frustrations to businesses implementing their system. What you discover about your business in the steps followed for Clause 4.1 and 4.2 will influence the boundaries you determine for your own management system. For example, if it was identified that contractors have an influence on the quality management system as a large part of work is completed by contractors and the work performed is vital to meet contract requirements, then it would be necessary to ensure that those activities are included in the scope, which essentially goes back to that boundaries and applicability. It would have an adverse effect on the system if these activities were not included within the scope, as the management system would not be implemented or reviewed to include this vital scope of work. And then finally, there's point C, which states that the products and services of the organisation should also be determined for the scope. This is a great point, and it's emphasised again shortly when we're asked to document the scope. So hold that thought. As we move through this clause further, it states that the organisation shall apply all the requirements of this international standard if they are applicable within the determined scope of its quality management system. Interesting. This is a unique element in ISO 9001. ISO 14001 or ISO 45001 do not allow for areas to be identified as not applicable to the system. This is just ISO 9001. So to explain this requirement of applicability further, I can use a training provider as an example, even Auditor Training Online to make it even more relevant. If Auditor Training Online purchased off-the-shelf courses and then just delivered them, we could state in our scope that clause 8.3, design and development, was not applicable to our quality management system. However, we do design and develop our own courses, so in the real world we could not state this. Design and development is a common clause that's stated as not applicable, as in some businesses they do just purchase and then resell, and there's no design or development involved. Another common clause is clause 7152, measurement traceability, which is essentially equipment calibration. If the business does not have any equipment that is used for products or services to customers that require calibration, then this clause could be stated as not applicable. So I do hope those examples have explained this further. If you're uncertain of any areas of applicability for your own system, please comment below and I can help. Now, clause 4.3 goes on to say, the scope of the organisation's quality management system shall be available and be maintained as documented information. The scope shall state the types of products and services covered and provide justification for any requirement of this international standard that the organisation determines is not applicable to the scope of its quality management system. Excellent. That's great for us as auditors, as we're expecting to see a scope written down somewhere and identify what has been determined as not applicable. So it is clear what we are using to select our sampling from. And as implementers or consultants of a system, be sure to have this documented. Now that we're speaking of documented scopes, you still might be wondering what on earth this looks like. Lucky for you, I've found a few examples for you and I'll share them. These are all from organisations that I have audited over the years. The first one is research and development, project management, sales, delivery, support, service and maintenance of communication services. The second one is electrical and mechanical consulting engineers providing engineering, design and documentation for mechanical and electrical installations associated with all types of building of residential, commercial or industrial nature in Australia and overseas. And finally, the third example also includes a part of the standard that is not applicable, so you can see how this is documented as well. So, the third one is the importation, distribution, supply, service and repair of industrial products and other products as deemed necessary to satisfy our customers' needs and requirements. Clause 8.3, design and development, is not applicable as this activity is not part of the service and products we require. Now, the last sentence of this clause is really important and wraps all of this up for you. It states, conformity to this international standard may only be claimed if the requirements determined as not being applicable do not affect the organisation's ability or responsibility to ensure the conformity of its products and services and the enhancement of customer satisfaction. Interesting, right? So this means you can't just state that a section of the standard is not applicable because it's easier or it's cheaper to leave it out of scope. Justification has to be valid. If you leave out a requirement and it impacts customer requirements and satisfaction, then it will be an issue for your business, for your system, and for your conformance. So please take this seriously and include all requirements that are relevant and applicable. I know that this can be confusing sometimes and it isn't always as straightforward as the examples I've given. This is why I want you to comment below and ask the question. I want to help you to sort this out. I do hope that this has been helpful to you, and thanks so much for joining me. And don't forget that Auditor Training Online is a recognised training provider, and we know how it works in the real world. So we are confident that we can help you to make a change in your life and join the most sought after profession out there. Go to our website and enroll in our training or register for one of our programs to transform your work and industry experience into a recognised qualification.